Here to stay no more. So here is the announcement from the Tampa Bay Rays. Opening day is right around the corner. Hold on. I'm going to put everybody out real quick just so everybody knows that we're live. Okay. Hold on, folks. I'm putting this out there. All right. Let's give everybody a second. Thanks. I appreciate everybody out there. Love you all. I'm going to wait for it to populate a little bit. Again, make sure you're following all social media platforms at Recher. Like and subscribe on YouTube as well. Thank you all for tuning in. Let's read what the Rays just put out. And this is at 11:38, so about 20 minutes ago. Opening day is right around the corner, and we are eager and prepared for what promises to be an exciting and fun season of baseball. Thanks to our dedicated staff and players, our fans will experience the game in one of the most intimate settings in modern baseball history. As we all recover from impacts of the hurricanes, we are incredibly grateful for the support from our fans and the wider Tampa Bay community. We are especially appreciative of how our corporate partners have stepped up during this challenging time for our organization. After careful deliberation, we have concluded we cannot move forward with this new ballpark and development project at this moment. A series of events beginning in October that no one could have anticipated led to this difficult decision. Our commitment to the vitality and success of the Rays organization is unwavering. We continue to focus on finding a ballpark solution that serves the best interest of our region, Major League Baseball, and our organization. The city of St. Petersburg is currently advancing plans to restore Tropicana Field for the 2026 season. We are thankful for their efforts and are excited to return to our home field next spring. Signed, Stuart Sternberg, Tampa Bay Rays principal owner. So I can't say I'm surprised. Can't say I'm surprised at all. And it was only a matter of time before we were going to hear something like this. With the growing sentiment and the growing discourse throughout the Tampa Bay area about what Stu is all about, and hearing, I want you guys to remember one thing. Do you remember when we had Chris Lavala on the first time, the Pinellas County Commissioner? Do you remember how he was public enemy number one before he came on our podcast here? And I say our podcast because as much as it says the Jay Recher podcast, you want to talk about a show for the people, this is the show for the people right here. And after we had Chris Lavala on the program, notice how the narrative changed. Notice how people were listening to what he had to say. And instead of just, oh, wow, he's a hater and he doesn't want baseball here, you notice how everybody was like, I kind of see where this guy's coming from. There was a hesitancy when the deal was announced from very few people just last year. I remember because we were on Tampa Bay Sports Radio, WDAE, the entire day. We were on there, and everybody was so freaking happy. Everybody was, listen, they were overjoyed. New ballpark, here to stay. All that mumbo jumbo. And now a letter like this comes out from Stu Sternberg. So all the people that were anti-Stu this entire time, they were proven right. They were proven right. And you could say whatever you want, like, oh, what happened in October. Listen, there was a lack of transparency from the county commissioner towards the county commissioners from the Rays. There was a lack of transparency towards the St. Pete City Council. You had to know things were really turning for the worst when Ken Welch and the St. Pete City Council, who have been lockstep, arm in arm with the Rays, trying to get this done. And you could see just in the last couple of weeks, they were just like, what is going on here? What is the deal? We had Paul Russo on earlier this week talking about Joe Malloy, who's leading a group of investors that are interested in buying the Rays. I know there's another group as well. So there's two groups that are going to try to salvage baseball in the Tampa Bay area. Now, does that mean that the stadium is going to be in St. Pete? Probably, because the framework is there. I do think there is hope of a new owner. I am not surprised one bit that this announcement was made today. Because just like the Montreal decision and the Montreal announcement, Stu has proven to be tone deaf when it comes to this organization and the interrelations with the community. I asked Stu this after the announcement of Montreal. And if you were watching the video, you know. I asked Stu Sternberg directly, and it wasn't the first time I asked him on air. There's record of this. Do you feel like there is a disconnect between the Tampa Bay Rays and the community? And he said no. You could say a lot of things about Stu Sternberg and his tenure and a lot of the things that he said and a lot of things that he did. But that right there, that was not true. There's no way. And the fact that he was lying or he actually thought in his mind that things were okay just shows that he's probably not the right guy to be the owner of the baseball team here in the Tampa Bay area. And I am not looking for Orlando to be a factor. Commissioner Rob Manfred, Commissioner Rob Manfred is looking at this situation going, okay, we got to move forward. Let's move forward and let's find somebody else because we want to keep it in the Tampa Bay area. Now, our good friend Colleen Wright just wrote this up. Tampa Bay Rays owner Stu Sternberg on Thursday called St. Pete Mayor Ken Welch to inform him the Rays will not meet the March 31st deadline to move forward with the stadium deal. The Rays faced that March 31st deadline to move forward with a deal to build a $1.3 billion stadium and develop the land around into the historic gas plant district if the Rays pull out. The deal approved with votes from the city council and county commission would fall apart. We knew that one of the main reasons why Stu didn't want to pull out of this deal is because in that original deal, it said that even if he sold the team, he would still own the area around the ballpark. And that was one of the biggest red flags to me when I was able to hear and see this deal. Why would you put something in there? It's like going into a relationship. It's like, hey, well, when we break up, let's make sure that we do it like this. Like, nobody does that. Nobody in a successful relationship thinks like that. What is that all about? So many missteps, time after time after time again. Stu just continuously alienated this fan base, pushed them farther and farther away of really investing into this team. And I feel terrible for Eric Neander and Matt Silverman and Brian Auld who have to pick up the pieces and Kevin Cash and these players on the field. They don't deserve this. I've been saying this since day one. They don't deserve all of this crap. Stu Sternberg was running this like a business. And I get it, right? Baseball is a business. I understand that. But if people look at you and they see that that's how you're treating it, that you're not putting the priorities and the likes and the wants and the needs of people in this community at the forefront, people aren't going to invest in your product. I know everybody's going to compare it to Vinnick, and I know to the Rays that's unfair. Maybe to Stu that was unfair, but it's the reality of the situation. We live in a comparative society. We live in a society where we have arguably the best owner in sports. And to a lot of people, possibly the worst owner in sports. How do you not compare the two? How do you not compare Stu Sternberg to a guy in Jeff Vinnick who ripped out all the seats at Amalie Arena and made sure that every single seat in there was cushioned for you so you were comfortable watching games and supporting the Lightning? Not many people can say that they've interviewed Stu Sternberg and Jeffrey Vinnick. I can tell you that firsthand, 6 weeks apart. And Stu Sternberg, even though he was very good to me, and I thought for the most part very honest in the answers, we probably didn't like the answers, but he was at least honest about them. But there was always just a little bit of, You walk away from that conversation and you're just like, I don't know. The last conversation Zach and I had with them at FanFest a couple years ago, you guys remember that. And the big takeaway from that conversation with Stu was what? Yeah, our payroll is going to be $90 million. I'm going to be taking a loss on my P&L statement this year. Think about how hollow that statement runs true even today on March 13th, 2025, where last year the owner of your baseball team was talking about taking a loss on your P&L statement. And now people have trouble buying eggs. People have trouble keeping a roof over their heads, finding a job. People are dealing with the aftermath and the after effects of the hurricane. And those are the conversations and those are the comments that are going to ring true. Nobody feels bad for Stu Sternberg. Nobody felt bad then. Nobody's going to feel bad now. Nobody's going to feel bad in the future. Nobody's going to look back on his tenure with the Rays with much pride. The Rays were successful during Stu Sternberg's tenure in spite of Stu Sternberg, not because of. Say that again. The Rays have been successful during Stu Sternberg's tenure in spite of him, rather than because of him. And listen to what Brian Auld and Matt Silverman have to do every single time something like this happens. They have to go out in front of everybody, and they have to answer all of these questions, and they have to do all these things to clean up Stu's mess. They're the people that came to iHeart that one time after the whole Montreal thing. It wasn't Stu. It was Brian and Matt looking down one end of the table to us, telling us at DAE what the deal was and why they wanted to do something like this, even though we vehemently thought it was a bad idea. They told us. They said, this is the only way we can keep baseball here. The only way we can keep baseball here is by doing half a season here, half a season in Montreal. What? Seriously? And then the deal follows through. Stu goes on Rays Radio that night with maybe not that night, but soon thereafter with Neil Solondz. Doesn't tell anybody. Just goes on Rays Radio and announces that it was a terrible idea to do that. Thank you. Duh. Putting a sign up in the outfield? What are we even doing here? So then fast forward to a couple of years later, and now we're talking about here to stay. Shovels in the ground. We're going to restore the historic gas plant district in St. Pete. The whole community is going to be revitalized. What happened to the only way baseball's staying here is going to be Montreal? What happened to that? That's what Matt and Brian told me right to my face. Now, I don't even know if I can blame them, because either they're vouching for Stu and speaking for him, or they weren't privy to those conversations. That's neither here nor there. But the fact that those things were said tells you all you need to know about the situation. I don't care if it was a bluff. I don't care if it was real. I don't care if it was fake. That is just another one of those things in the middle of this entire story that just smelled so nasty. And for those people that were out there this entire time never believing Stu, they're going to be proven right. I think there's a lot of people out there that were looking at this situation with Stu Sternberg and the Rays, and it's just ambivalence. It's just apathy. Like, here we go again. Just another saga, just another chapter in this story where everybody's going to be looking at the Tampa Bay area and their baseball team and mocking us. It's a shame. It's an absolute shame that Stu Sternberg's tenure with the Tampa Bay Rays has clouded this area when it comes to baseball. Because you look at the rich tradition of baseball here in Tampa Bay. Okay, look at it this weekend. The Saladino tournament starts this weekend. Some of the best high school baseball that you're going to see in the country. And you know the names that have played in Saladino. You know Wade Boggs and Fred McGriff and Tino Martinez and Luis Gonzalez and Lance McCullers and Kyle Tucker. All these different names, and Sean Figgins, just all these different guys from the Tampa Bay area, Gary Sheffield, the Dwight Goodens, they all played in Saladino. This is a baseball hotbed. This is one of the best cities in the entire world for baseball. Forget the country, in the world. This is where baseball lives. Tampa is a home for baseball. That's just in the prep side of it. What about the college side? I'm going to be on the call this weekend for USF in Maryland. We got a D1 baseball team. We have the best Division II baseball team in the country. There is so much good baseball here in the Tampa Bay area, and people look down on Tampa Bay because of what the Rays have represented because of their owner. Not because of what has happened on the field, but because of their owner. Everybody looks at the Rays like the little engine that could. Wow, they're doing this in spite of having a low payroll. Well, okay. What if they had a guy at the helm that was willing to go over $100 million? Oh my God, a payroll over $100 million. Imagine that. Because I am telling you right now, baseball 1,000,000% can work in the Tampa Bay area. No doubt about it in my mind. I've been there. This isn't media Jay Recher talking. This is baseball coach Jay Recher talking. I've traveled all around the state, and I've seen thousands and thousands of kids and families around the state at baseball fields. They want to be here. They want to be in the Tampa Bay area supporting the Rays. But if your team is, if there's an apathy, if there's a, we don't know, there's probably other things, they're going to go do something else. Don't tell me hockey can work here and baseball don't. Because it's not just the 81 games. The Lightning do anything. They do a live recording of the block party at a bar across the street from Emily. That thing gets packed every single time. You go to a watch party. You go to any of these things that the Tampa Bay Lightning do. You look at how many people travel. How many people travel across the world to go to Lightning games? Bolts Nation is everywhere. How does that happen? Because they know by giving an absolute crap about their team and investing time, money, and energy, if they do it, you're going to do it. They don't leave anything to be unturned. They don't leave anything to just be, all right, well, did the Lightning really care about our community? Nobody has to question that. Not one bit. But for the Rays, year after year after year, trying to help them, trying to help people in the community, support this team. It's just, my goodness. Again, I feel so bad for the people that work inside the organization. I feel bad for the players and the coaches. They shouldn't have to be answering questions about this shit. Really? What are we doing? Again, if you're just joining us, the statement again from the Rays, I'll read it one more time. Opening day right around the corner. We're eager and prepared for what promises to be an exciting and fun season of baseball. Thanks to our dedicated staff and players, our fans will experience the game in one of the most intimate settings in modern baseball history. As we all recover from impacts of the hurricanes, we are incredibly grateful for the support from our fans and the wider Tampa Bay community. We're especially appreciative of how our corporate partners have stepped up during this challenging time for our organization. Now for the real stuff. That was fluff, those first two paragraphs. After careful deliberation, we have concluded we cannot move forward with the new ballpark and development project at this moment. A series of events beginning in October that no one could have anticipated led to this difficult decision. Our commitment to the vitality and success of the Rays organization is unwavering. We continue to focus on finding a ballpark solution that serves the best interest of our region, Major League Baseball, and our organization. The city of St. Petersburg is currently advancing plans to restore Tropicana Field. For the 2026 season, we are thankful for their efforts and are excited to return our home field next spring. After you listen to that for the second time here on the podcast, I mean, do you buy any of it? Do you buy any of that stuff? Do you really think Stu cares about the Tampa Bay Rays fan? You can say he does. But I mean, who's saying that still right now? Who is anybody on Stu's side? Is anybody looking at Stu Sternberg right now as a sympathetic figure? Go look at how much he's worth. Go look at what his net value is. Most of us will never see that money in our lifetime. So we're supposed to feel bad for this guy? A lack of transparency on this entire deal with the county commissioners? The city council now being told by Stu himself that they're not going to be able to meet that March 31st deadline 18 days before they were supposed to show that they had the money. They had a person, an independent person involved in this entire situation, saying that it wasn't going to cost that much money. It was going to cost some, but it wasn't going to cost hundreds of millions of dollars because there was that delay because of the storm. And when they wanted all of this money and everybody said, all right, well, show me where you're getting these figures from, Stu. Crickets, silence, nothing. Why would you ever want to go into business with somebody if they're not being transparent? If you feel there's any hint, just a little bit, of somebody being disingenuous. I have tried to give Stu the benefit of the doubt. I've tried to look at this entire situation with the Rays over the last decade and said, all right, well, he isn't Finnick, all right? And I don't really like some of the things he said, but he's the owner. You can't fire the owner. So how can we make the best of a bad situation? But it just got progressively worse and worse and worse and worse. And it culminates with this announcement today, about 22 minutes ago. And if there were any other people hanging on to Stu Sternberg being a saving grace, being a guy that was going to really, really change the trajectory of this franchise from being a freaking bottom-feeding, revenue share-taking baseball team to one of the elite, one of the cream of the crop, that's gone. Even a little sliver of you out there that believe that Stu was maybe getting the shaft. Maybe we're being a little bit too hard on him. That is gone. And pretty soon he will be too. Isn't it crazy too? I want to go back to this. We mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. Two guys kind of on the opposite sides of the spectrum here, and we've had them both on the show. We've had Chris LaValle on, Pinellas County Commissioner, who's been very active on Twitter the last couple of weeks, hasn't he? Chris has joined the show, and I'm so grateful to have gotten to know him and to hear his side of everything. And he has been very vocal in his displeasure with how the Tampa Bay Times has covered this situation. So, and specifically John Romano. We've had both those guys on the show. And if you go back and you watch those interviews with Chris LaValle and with John Romano, what did they both say? These are guys that have been disagreeing for a while. Probably Chris more disagreeing with the job of the Times rather than vice versa. But what did both of those guys say? Right here on the Recher podcast. Like and subscribe. They said that this ends with Stu Sternberg selling the Rays. Chris thought it would be a shorter time frame. John thought it would be a longer time frame. But you don't get this far down the road and don't sell the team. And it's just sad. It's sad that things like this have to happen. It's sad that we have to talk about things. I want to talk about Coach Jose Fernandez and the USF women's basketball team. Congratulations on winning the American Athletic Conference Championship. They're going dancing, baby. Cannot wait for that. Congratulations to Coach Jose and the whole crew. But this is a huge, huge story here in the Tampa Bay area. Isn't it crazy, though? Isn't it crazy that we're not surprised? Is anybody surprised by this? I feel like you meet certain people in life and you can agree or you can disagree with them. But then there's also those people that you agree or disagree, but you respect or you don't respect, you trust or you don't trust. And Stu Sternberg is a perfect example of that. Because I got to be honest with you, every time I spoke to Stu, I actually liked him. I didn't hate talking to him. I didn't like some of his answers, but he wasn't like the worst person in the world. He wasn't like transparently over the top, like, evil. I didn't like what he said. So I didn't dislike the guy, but I sure as hell didn't trust him. I'd much rather deal with somebody that I may not like, but I can trust him. I know he's going to be upfront in my face, telling me what I like or don't like. But Stu is one of those guys that when you were done talking with him, you were just like, something's off. Do you remember before I got really sick? Before I got really sick the other day, on Tuesday, I had Rondé Barber and I had, who else did I have? Rondé Barber and Freddie Coleman on the program. And when those guys hopped off air, what happened? I was smiling ear to ear, sick as a dog. Sick as a dog. But those guys, when you're done speaking to them, you walk away and you're like, great dudes. Great dudes. Didn't have that feeling with a guy like Stu Sternberg, unfortunately. We have that same feeling with Tony Dungy. You have that same feeling with Derek Brooks. When you speak to those guys, when they're done, when they hop off the podcast, you're like, damn, I feel so much better about myself. It's kind of crazy how that whole situation works. People have that impact on you. Unfortunately, Stu is on the other end of the spectrum. Even if the conversation went well, even if you didn't hate the guy, when he walked away from the booth, you're like, don't know if I like or dislike the guy, but I sure as hell don't trust him for as long as I can throw him. And now we got to turn the page. Now it's the next chapter. What are we going to do when it comes to the Rays? And we're going to have to go back to these two groups that are out there that are investing or looking to build up the investors. And maybe we'll have some new owners for the Rays, because that's the next chapter in this saga. All right, so the big news of the day today, the Rays announcing that they are not going to go forward with the stadium deal. So as of now, it looks like that Stu is going to have to sell. And who is it going to be, right? That's going to be once the initial shock wears off of this. And you're starting to get more and more people commenting on it. I saw something with Rob Manfred already coming out with a statement saying that he was disappointed, but he understands everybody else's disappointment, but they're still committed to the Tampa Bay area, which is great. We also see Mayor Jane Castor on the Tampa side saying how important it is for baseball to stay in the Tampa Bay area, but if it's going to be here on the Tampa side, it's got to make sense for the county and the city, which makes all the sense in the world. One of the reasons why it was going to be on that side was because of all the money that the Rays were going to get from the St. Pete City Council and from the Pinellas County Commissioners. So, I mean, I don't know. I look at this situation, and when you're talking about the Rays and you're talking about baseball, this was the last straw, right? It was the last straw for Stu, and we knew this was coming. We knew that it was the only thing we didn't know is what day it was going to be announced. Was it going to be March 31st? We knew that was the deadline. We've been having this conversation here on the program with Colleen Wright from the Tampa Bay Times for for the last couple of months, we knew March 31st was that date that we had circled on the calendar. That's the date right there. Are we going to be able to see the Rays bring up the paperwork and go, here you go. Here's our funding. Thank you for your contributions. Thank you for your contributions. Here's our part. Let's move forward. Let's get this stadium built. Let's repair the chop and let's build this new stadium and let's revitalize the gas plant district and everybody wins. And then Stu gets what he wants because not only does he build the stadium, but he has all of that land around it and he can still own that even if he sells the team. But as we got closer and closer and closer and more of the information kept coming out and more of the humming and hawing and more of the BS kept spewing out, we knew that this day was coming. I don't think anybody was naive to the fact that at some point there was going to be an announcement from the Rays. At some point we were going to hear from Stu Sternberg, and this was the announcement that was going to happen. This was the announcement that was going to be made. This is the move that was going to be made. It's a sad day. It's a sad day in the history of Tampa Bay baseball. And as much as I say that, I look at it like this. Maybe it's a step in the right direction. Maybe this is that first day of the breakup. Maybe it's the first day after the divorce, right? But it's not completely done yet. But maybe this is the time where you finally let your partner know it's over. It's over. We should start going in separate directions. You go your way, I'll go my way, and we'll try to find happiness somewhere else. Because we know that Stu Sternberg, he doesn't have to sell. He could take this place somewhere else, or he could take this team somewhere else. I just don't see that happening. And I also don't see it going to Orlando either. If you're Rob Manfred, you're not taking this team out of this market. You're not. You're staying in the Tampa Bay area. You're not going to Orlando. This is just this is the weirdest thing when people just pop up out of nowhere. Orlando would love to have him. Yeah, okay. Yeah, great. That's great. I'm sure you would love to date a supermodel as well, but she's not going after you because you live in your parents' basement. Sorry, it's not happening. So as bad as I feel for Rays fans today, there is also that other side that I look at. All right, now this is a step in the right direction. Let's move past the Stu Sternberg owning the Rays, and let's now focus on these two groups that are getting together to try to put a bid together to buy this team. And I'm hoping that it's Joe Malloy and his crew, because Joe is a Tampa guy, and as we articulated before with our good buddy Paul Russo, that's known him for 4 decades, that's the type of guy that we want here. We want a guy that's going to own the Rays, that is going to commit to the area, whether it's Tampa or St. Pete. He's going to commit to working with people from the Bay Area. And he's going to focus on community relations and make it so that is a must-see product, a must-watch product, a product where you're willing to drive from all over the state. Forget about, it's too far over a bridge. Listen, if the Rays were that attractive, people will come from Orlando. People will drive up from Miami. People will come from Ocala. People come from all over the freaking state. People will drive from Georgia to spend a weekend in the Tampa Bay area to go to a Rays game. People do that. Right now, I know that's kind of unrealistic and unbelievable to say because it's the Rays. But that's what people do for the Lightning. People make the joke about snowbirds. You know what people do? People that live in areas that are covered with snow in certain times of the year, they fly down to the Bay Area for the week or fly down to the Bay Area for the weekend, and they plan it around the time that their team is here. Oh, wow. We live in Boston. They're playing the Lightning in January. Let's go down there the 3rd week in January. Let's spend a week in Tampa and go see the Bees play the Lightning. I know people wouldn't like that type of thing. Oh, man, we want more Rays fans, more Lightning fans. No, listen, man. You want to fill that stadium. Fill that stadium, fill that arena. The more people in there, the better. They don't ask you what team you support when they click off the attendance, when you walk through that turnstile. They don't even have turnstiles, really, do they anymore? So I guess they do. Some places do. But this entire situation with the Rays, again, if you're just joining us, the team lets everybody know this stadium deal not going to go through. Don't anticipate anything being signed on March 31st. And I just don't know if, like, is Stu going to show his face? Like, when's the next time we're going to hear from Stu? This guy is going to get booed terribly every single time he shows up to a game from here on out, the rest of his tenure. Because, again, we go back to what happened last year. We went on air 2 hours earlier than we had to because of the big announcement at Tropicana Field. Here to stay. All the community leaders were there. The broadcast partners, the corporate partners were there. Pat and Aaron were there. We were on early. We were just sitting there as everybody was just blowing smoke. This is going to be so great for the Tampa Bay area. Blah, 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 freaking blah. And now what? Shovel's not in the ground. And we're back at square one. And once again, going back to what we were saying a little while ago, today's not the day to be I told you so guy. Today's not the day I never trusted Stu. We should have never believed it. Okay, fine. What does that do? That does nothing. That doesn't add anything to the story. We know that Stu is a guy that you wouldn't trust as far as you could throw him, even with what happened last year. There was anticipation. There was excitement because this was as close as we've gotten to a new stadium, to getting those shovels in the ground. But it never happened. Stu Sternberg, my man. People, and you heard it from Ed Encina. Ed said when he covered that team in the beginning, some of those early Stu years, people were so excited because why? He wasn't Vince Namoli. Well, now we're in a situation where people are going to love the next Rays owner because he's not Stu Sternberg. And for a guy that has brought this team some success over the years, no doubt about it, I'll say it once and I'll say it again. The Rays have been successful during Stu Sternberg's tenure in spite of his ownership, not because of it. We show love to Brian Auld. We show love to Matt Silverman and Eric Neander and all those guys that have been here over the years to make this team competitive every year. The job that Kevin Cash and Kyle Snyder and all these guys within the organization, what they've been able to do to compete in one of, if not the best division in baseball, is miraculous. When you think of what they've had to deal with the lack of support from their ownership. So on a day like this, when Stu Sternberg announces that the stadium deal is dead and the entire Tampa Bay area is kind of looking at him going, yeah, but we're not surprised. We're not surprised because for far too long, Stu has not been one of those pillars in this community that you can trust. You may like the guy, you may dislike the guy, but there's just one thing that we haven't been able to do during his time here, and that's trust him. Again, this is a guy that was more focused on his P&L statement than having a payroll over $100 million. This is a guy that thought it was a great idea to have a split season with half of the games in the Tampa Bay area and the other half in Montreal. They told us to our faces that's the only way that baseball was going to work in the Tampa Bay area. Then a couple of years later, we have a look at this big announcement. The Rays are here to stay. Well, the Rays may be here to stay. But one thing we do know is that Stu Sternberg is not. So when you look at this entire situation with the Rays, I mean, hey, man, again, you're aggravated and you're pissed and you're just, but what, right? What are we mad about? We're mad about something that was inevitable anyway. We're mad about something that we knew was going to happen. both sides of the argument, whether it was a Chris Lavala, whether it was a John Romano, like they both knew that it was inevitable that this guy was going to sell the team. Some people thought it was going to be soon. Some people, like, we don't know when that's going to happen. We don't know when this guy is going to sell the team. But what we do know is that this guy is not going to be part of the future of this club. And I don't know if you can, rejoice or you can be pissed. Like, I don't know where you fall on this side of the argument, but I think it's a step in the right direction. You start pushing it back. We start getting closer and closer to the time where Stu Sternberg is not the owner of the Tampa Bay Rays. There you go.